Check. Yep, I just turned it on.
You're ready, so pretty much while I'm on here.
I'm gonna get some water here. You ready?
Okay. Getting that out. Can you get the 10 for me?
What's that?
Never mind. All right. Everything sounds great. You can hang up now.
Okay.
I'll hang up.
All right. Bye, guys. Okay. Let's get started. Phone is on. Okay, chat rooms are looking good. Okay. Well, then let's do this. I wish I had some music. Okay, so we'll get started. Hi, everyone. It's Yadira. Hola a todos. So we're back for episode. Actually, I don't know which episode number this is. It could be 5. In any case, this is the TechQuitos program where we explore ancient technology. Lately, we've been focusing mostly on kind of like indigenous knowledge through in the Mesoamerican regions, and and we talk a little bit about how it's applied in present day, how that technology exists in present day, and also we just kind of play around and imagine what this kind of technology could look like in the future. So today we have a really fun topic. We're going to be exploring bioplastics. But first, before we jump into that, I just want to quickly remind you guys, if you are watching by yourself, this would be a great opportunity to invite your little brother or your older brother, sister, primo, prima. Extra points if you can get your parents to sit and watch this with you or do some of the activities. Not only is it fun to learn together, but it's actually a trick to not getting in trouble for making big messes and experimenting in the kitchen. And here's a little tip here. If you can get your parents to join you, then they'll most likely help you clean up the mess afterwards. So it's not too late. Go ahead and grab someone and and follow along as we delve into bioplastics. If this is your first time watching, I just want to quickly review what we were discussing last week because there's a little bit of a connection. Last week we were talking about how Mesoamericans played with rubber, or not, excuse me, not rubber, but with inflatables. And the way they did that was through this experimentation process of using intestines, both from humans and creatures, and they experimented with how they could, inflate the different areas of like the innards, and so basically they were playing around with like these human balloons, and so we created our own robot hand with balloons. Well, we had, I think it was a latex glove that we blew up and we manipulated it, and we talked a little bit about actuators. Here's my paper example. I don't have my my robot hand to show you today, but I have my paper one. So the robot hand was this glove that we could then pull the different fingers so it could close its hand. So that was what we did last week. But on that note of using the latex glove, it got me thinking about materials that the latex glove was made of. And so that's kind of that's our jumping off point into today's topics. Bioplastics. So I'm gonna just quickly switch my camera over here. And by the way, if you have any questions or if you have any information, interesting, fun facts, definitely post them in the chat room and I will be happy to share with everyone. So let's go over here. Okay. One second. If by chance you can figure out what those plants are at the bottom, you'll get bonus. Oopsies. Sorry, guys. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So, and I wanted to just show you those two plants because that's pretty important as we talk a little bit about our topic today. Those two plants, by the way, were pretty abundant in Central America, and we're going to look a little bit further down as how those were, how the Mayans experimented with those plants. But I don't want to tell you what the plants are because then you're going to know exactly what secret ingredient is used in, or that is derived from those plants. So let's take a quick look at these three pictures. Can you guess the secret ingredient, or the natural substance in all of these pictures? So the first one here looks like some type of tree. Second one looks like an ancient artifact. And of course you'll see some gloves on the right hand side. I'll give you a second. Awesome. If you said rubber, you are correct. So I'm going to walk you through how rubber came to be. And then we're going to transition into its connection to bioplastics. But if you look at the first picture, you see this tree is it's got these really, I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. So there are these slanted cuts that are made into the rubber tree. And when those cuts are made, you can see that you're able to well, you see that like milky, sticky substance kind of dripping, right? So this is how like the Mayans harvested rubber or natural latex. And so they would collect all of the milky, sticky sap. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what they do with it. But let's go to the next picture. We know that Mesoamericans had were able to figure out how to make rubber balls, right? So the picture in the middle is an example of a rubber ball. That one's, I think, maybe a few thousand years old. So pretty small, looks dense, and it probably looks like a stone, but that in fact was a pretty, it was, I guess, relatively bouncy in its day. Quick, fun tidbit about how the Spaniards documented this. So when the Spaniards arrived on the shores of Mexico, they documented how basically they were just mesmerized by this bouncy ball. They had never seen something like that before, and so they were fascinated with how the Aztecs were able to create that substance to make it bounce. So I just wanted to point that out. I thought that's kind of interesting. And then finally, on the right, you guys are probably familiar with just a plain old pair of latex gloves, especially now. So in any case, so essentially, here's the way rubber was created. So we know that Mayans were able to harvest the sap from the rubber trees, right? They were able to pull the natural latex from the trees. But what was interesting is that they also, I'm going to just jump back to the first page here. So that first picture in the far left corner is a rubber tree. But on the right is a morning glory plant. And so what was fascinating to me is that the Mayans were able to explore looking at native plants and basically mixing the natural ingredients from each of those plants. And that's essentially what creates rubber. So there's in the morning glory plant, it's rich, it has this juice, it produces this juice that's really rich in sulfur, amino acids, and that is really the key to helping vulcanize rubber. And that's what, when I say vulcanize rubber, that's what allows it to give it its bounce and its malleable shape. So that experimentation process occurred, during the BCE era, and so it, you see it documented not only with Mayans, but Olmecs and Aztecs. So a lot of different Mesoamerican groups have incorporated those uses of rubber. Not only did they use rubber for balls, they used them for sculpting like figurines. And I don't know how much of this part is true, but apparently somewhere it's documented that like in the 1600s, I believe some of the rubber was used or incorporated into the clothing. Maybe, I don't know if shoes. I don't know if that's the story of huaraches. Don't quote me on that, but I do know my dad used to have a pair of these huaraches with rubber on the bottom. And let me tell you, those huaraches did not ever wear out. Like they could go on for days and years. So anyway, it could take a lot, and they definitely didn't wear out. So, okay, guys. So again, that's kind of the process of how rubber came to be. And now, of course, we see how rubber is used in everyday life, such as the gloves, Tupperware, things of that nature, balls. I mean, there's so many uses for rubber. But I want to talk a little bit about more, like, I suppose, creative uses and this idea of bioplastics. So for me, when I think about bioplastics, I think about, well, we'll explain exactly what that is in a bit, but I think of like the natural process of experimenting with biological matter, right? So creating things with material that is with natural material that can break down easily. That's essentially what a bioplastic is. But I love this idea that that early civilizations were experimenting with those processes early on, and seeing what would happen when you switch up the ratios. Again, this is really the beautiful story behind how rubber is discovered. But nowadays we have things like plastics that don't necessarily have the capability to biodegrade. Like they have things that are synthetic, ingredients that are synthetic. Petroleum is used in them, so it's harder for those types of products to be broken down. If you've gone to the grocery stores, especially here in New York, you'll notice that there are a lot of grocery stores that now, well, and it's because of the law, but they don't can't bag your groceries with plastic bags. So you have to pay 10 cents for your paper bag, right? So there's a big push, I think, in terms of the law, but also I think people are becoming more environmentally aware of what that means to have and use products that are biodegradable and better for the environment. So in this picture, we have a couple of interesting examples of bioplastics. And so here I have the definition. Bioplastics is plastics made from a plant or biological matter. So in this first example, you have some plateware, and that's all made from cornstarch, or I should say it's plant-based. I want to say it's the more, I guess, formal name for it is PLA, polyactic acid, which is basically what happens is the sugars in cornstarch or sugar cane is used to then create this material. It's also biodegradable, carbon neutral, and edible, but although I would not suggest eating that. But so yeah, plant-based. That's my first example. But if you look on the right-hand side, this is actually a more interesting, well, for me, I'm captivated by the shape and the colors. And this is an example of a corset made of, and I think this may be plant-based. I can't remember the artist who created this, but there's several artists that have been playing around with bioplastic textiles down the street at this amazing place called Gen Space, where they explore biotech. And I went over there a year ago to play around with bioplastics, and there was someone who had shown us some really cool plants made of, I believe it was just a couple different plant ingredients, and then it was cured, and they were like real stiff, like a pair of jeans, basically. So I found that to be really fascinating. I think that the world of fashion may look really fascinating in the future with this use of bioplastics. So, right, so, and also I just want to point this out too. I'm going to switch cameras for just a second because why not? Let's chat. I think sky's the limit when we talk about the use of bioplastics. I think that there's an urgency to explore bioplastics in all areas, not just reusable plateware, or biodegradable plateware, but in all aspects of life. So textiles is a great example, furniture, toys, the same way that we would have thought of designing, those things with regular plastics that contain synthetic materials. We could, explore the possibilities of what that looks like with bioplastics. And so as I got thinking about an area of science that I'm very fond of, which is robotics, I thought about what that could look like, what robots could look like with being made out of bioplastics. Excuse me. And so just think for a moment, here we have robots that we can program, and they're usually made of, well, for the most part, like hard materials. But just think for a moment if the materials that we use for robots could be, I don't know, replaced with something that is also biodegradable. So who knows? I mean, that I think to me is a pretty exciting idea. And on that note, we are going to play around with some of those notions. I'm going to flip back over here. Okay, we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator. All right, I'm just being honest. I don't think I've watched any of maybe Terminator 1, but I don't I didn't watch anything past that. So in this picture, I have Arnold Schwarzenegger's face exposed with the robot that he is, and then on the other side, we've got some skin. And in that smaller picture above the Terminator's head, this is an example of robotic skin. A lab, I believe, out of Cambridge has been experimenting with this skin material that can be used in robots. And so I thought, well, what better way to explore robot skin than to actually create our own? So for the next 10 minutes, we're going to be, turn our desks, our kitchens, or whatever into a little lab. We're going to try to create some robot skin. So here's what you're going to need. You need some food coloring. That's okay if you don't have any. You could just, it can be clear and translucent, which is totally fine. We've got, let's see here, you're going to need a measuring spoon. Well, to be more specific, you just need a tablespoon. You'll need a packet of gelatin. I'm using Knox as featured it here in the picture. And then some glycerin, some vegetable-based glycerins. All you need. Okay. Oh, and you will need you'll need access to a microwave. I don't have one, but I do have a hot plate which I'm about to heat up and it heats up really quickly. So let me just pull this back for a second here. Okay. Awesome. Okay, guys. So let me just plug this in as we talk about the ingredients. Okay. And I'm also going to quickly grab some examples. So why don't I switch over to my other camera? Check out this snazzy overhead camera that we have, everyone. Pretty cool. I'm going to show you my first one. And also for a resource, this is a book I checked out from the library before they all closed down, and I came across this recipe on robot skin, and so that's what you are looking at right now, the ingredients for that. Okay, now as I mentioned, here was my first prototype of the robot skin. I used this tray. I think I had broccoli in this tray, and I really liked the texture of the bottom. So I went ahead and did my first prototype of robot skin and refrigerated it. This I thought was pretty malleable. Like, it takes a while before you really you really have to rip it or try to rip it before it falls apart. So I do see this as being, durable to an extent. But let me show you how I actually made that. So awesome. Okay. So what you do, you get your bowl. You're going to take 1 packet of your gelatin, just like that. You're going to just sprinkle around. Okay, cool. By the way, I should mention, gelatin is from collagen in, I believe, animal bones. So this is an animal-based recipe. It's not plant-based. So we're not using any of those sugars from the cornstarch. That's not what we're doing today. But there are examples of plant-based or recipes, but this is just what I happen to have. So we're going to go with it. Okay, so we've done 1 packet of gelatin. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of water. 1, 2, and then to that we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the vegetable glycerin. So that's 1, 2. Okay. Now it's going to look like this, right? Like a little gloopy. Oopsies. And you're just going to have to mix that a teeny bit to try to dilute a little, or just make sure all of those ingredients are mixed thoroughly. Okay. So now what we need to do is heat it up. We got to liquefy it. Okay. So I'm happy with that. All right. Now you can't see this, but I've got my hot plate over here. I'm going to switch back over to this camera so you can see. All right. This only takes a few minutes, guys. Not even a few minutes. It just needs to heat up enough, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's heated. What we're really looking for is for that gooey gel effect to look more liquid based. So you don't want it to burn. Obviously, it doesn't take that long. Just going to turn it up a teeny bit, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Oh yeah, it's starting to melt. I'm sure if you played with the temperature and if you did bring it to a boil, I don't know how that would react or how that would be different, but it's worth experimenting. Why not? Okay. Good. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and show you. First, let me unplug the hot plate. All right. So this is what it looks like. Oh. Yeah, you can see that, right? Do you see how it's really liquidy now? Just looks like you melted like butter or oil in a pan. Okay, so I'm going to take this out, and as that cools a smidge, oh, I guess my plate was a little dirty. So here is our example of my first prototype. We're going to do a little display of the different ones. Oh, by the way, food coloring. Oops, I forgot about that. You know, this might actually be exciting. I'm going to lay this on the plate, and then, I'm going to, you know what? I know what I'll do. I'm going to go ahead and use my, my food coloring now. And then as I pour it in to the mold, we'll see how those colors kind of mix together. Oops. Okay. That may have been a lot. All right, guys. Got a few more minutes. Hopefully we'll see this really come together. So this to me feels pretty cool now. I'm just going to whoop. Oh, this looks like 4th of July. Okay. I know you can't really see that because it's black. I'm holding it like this. All right. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to just distribute. All righty. Okay. I think that's good enough. So you're going to end up with like a thin layer of your robot skin. Hang on. I want to see if I can distribute it a little bit better. All right. So now what you're going to do, pop this in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. That's all you got to do. So I'm going to go back over here. Let me go throw this in the refrigerator really quickly, and then I'm going to show you what I did right before class started. Okay. So here I have my example that I did right before I started class. So this has been curing for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. This is a little bit thinner, so you'll have to forgive me. I think this might rip a teeny bit. Oh, give me a second. I'm going to get some scissors and cut this. I have to say this feels really cool. It doesn't really leave a residue, but it's awfully soft to the touch. Okay, I'm back. I can't remember what color I used for this either. I think I may have just added the colors at the very last moment. All right. And while I'm cutting, if you have any ideas on what we could do on the show, definitely let me know. I'd be happy to incorporate that or add it to our list of projects. Okay. So now I'm hoping that having cut it out, like me trimming the edges, will help peel. Make the peeling process a little bit easier. All right, guys. This one's a little bit trickier. You can kind of see. Let me switch camera so you can kind of see how it's coming along here. As I'm peeling, I want us to also think about what different uses bioplastics may be used for. So like I love this idea of creating robots out of something like this that we could just like pour some hot water on and whoop, it melts, and voila, we're back to, you know, basic, back to square one, essentially. So, oh, that looks good. It's coming along. Do you see that? It looks like gelatin. Looks like Jell-O, excuse me, but definitely do not eat this. Since it doesn't taste like anything. Oh, I will say this. It also stinks because gelatin is animal-based, so it doesn't smell good, guys. I learned that when I refrigerated this. I also want to give big props to bakeries, specifically the Mexican bakeries that do like gelatina art. Like what? Some of their stuff is amazing. They're like Jell-O artists. Okay, guys. So here, if you can see that, it's pretty translucent. There we go. So I like this idea of being able to use robot skin on our fingers. Just because, well, first off, I think it might be helpful as you think about how we can contain the spread of germs. But also, I think, well, yeah, actually, maybe that's really, I just also think that it feels super cool. Anyway, so here's my example of robot skin. Pretty neat. It's really, this is awfully thin, so it is a little more delicate. As you can see, if you pull enough, it'll pop right off. This, my first prototype, was definitely a little bit thicker. So if you're going to do this at home, make sure you think about how thick you want it. And obviously, the thicker you go, the more durable it is. But the thinner is also really neat. You can just, yeah, throw that on your face or your hand. Looks like jewelry, like a cool glove. Awesome, everyone. So let's go back here. Awesome. Okay, so as I clean this up, I just want to say thank you for tuning in and checking this out. I hope, I hope you had fun playing with bioplastics. And when you hear that word next time, I hope you think of the ancient Mayans and how they experimented with rubber. So thanks, everyone. Take care. Be safe. And I'll see you back here next week. All right. Bye. Mm-hmm.